You are now listening to The Spearsy Spin with your host, Mike Spears.
Hi, folks, and welcome to The Spearsy Spin, Wednesday, May 10th, 2017, and May 11th, 2017. Tonight, James Comey, FBI Director, is fired, and I think we have the untold reason, and we're going to give it to you here tonight. Now, first, we need to explain why FBI Director Comey was fired and the real reason for that firing. Now, there are many folks in the United States saying that James Comey deserved firing, and that seems quite harsh to me. But is there merit to what these folks are saying? Is there more to the story than the White House is reporting? I believe so, and here is the most pragmatical assessment that I feel will come out over the next few weeks. First, let's look at Director Comey's handling of the whole Clinton email situation. As you know, evidence was abundant, and then it wasn't. Then the FBI found even more emails on Mrs. Anthony Weiner's cell phone. This caused a huge ripple in the Clinton camp twice. Of course, the timing of the release of these documents certainly could not have come at a worse time for Mrs. Clinton, being so close to the election. So all this email stuff with the Clintons, plus the issue with those pesky Russians, plus trying to protect certain individuals and maybe even some leakers there at the White House, would be an extremely difficult role which to mentally survive in. And that brings us to James Comey, now the former FBI Director. Throughout history, some of the strongest and most resolved people we have known during their respective tenure here on the planet have faced insurmountable stresses and sadly have paid a very high price with regard to self-solace. Now, with that said, I would like to suggest a parody of emotional discourse that I think will afford us an in-depth view into the mind of former Director Comey. Now, this is going out to my little sister, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen, please share this with our friend Bob and ask him for his consensus. I figured I'd save a phone call because my sister listens religiously. Well, all right, she listens once in a while. Okay, when she can. All right, she's never heard it. All right, let's move along. All right, I would like to provide you with an allusion to a very multi-complicated mental health profile that is extremely difficult to relate to others who are unfamiliar with extreme mental complexities, especially when these complexities are interposed within themselves while interacting within the human psyche. Now, in this conglomerate of absolute personality proxies, there will emerge exact personas that are carefully but subconsciously manifested in such a way to fulfill the immediate need of what has to be said or done at the moment. Because at our human core, we are survivors, and it is the mind's job to use any and all available data and knowledge within the brain to secure our survival. Now, with the issue of Mr. Comey, the complexities here are at a level that I dare say would have melted the average man. And by this I mean Mr. Comey has been dealing with terrorists both here in the United States and abroad. He's had to investigate the Clinton machine, both Bill and Hillary, while being constantly reminded of the Clintons' deceased attorney Vince Foster and the heavy fog of deception and unvetted theories swirling around his untimely death. Also, this director was investigating ties between the Clinton Foundation and Saudi Arabia with eyes on several Saudi sheiks as well as the King of Saudi Arabia himself. Now add to this stress the Mike Flynn, Donald Trump, Russia episode, along with a huge disseminating, that is, leaking of classified information to the press concerning the above.
Remove the jobs, break the schools, pull back the police. Let the streets flood with drugs. Let violent gangs recruit child soldiers and terrorize neighborhoods. Don't prosecute gun crimes. And when the media looks you in the eye after another bloody weekend in a major American city, call for more gun control. If our politicians are truly using the carnage they refuse to stop to attack the rights of honest, hardworking Americans caught in living hell, then they are guilty of the most despicable form of racism imaginable. What has been allowed to happen in our inner cities is an absolute disgrace. If the same epidemic of poverty, gang violence, and broken schools poison the neighborhoods of the nation's political class, you'd better believe they'd be talking about real solutions, not gun control. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
Tell your friends and neighbors about the Spearsy Spin.
Hi folks. Times we live in today are scary. Religious freedoms under fire, racial divide never more evident, political powers fighting, foreign countries looking to exploit our country, news media reporting unfair on issues, folks searching out the truth. I listen to the news, then I listen to the Spearsy Spin. Mike Spears has experience, education, determination, and grit to get what's going on in our country. Listen to Mike Monday through Friday. I'll listen. Hope you'll be listening too.
Don't miss even one show. Subscribe to the Spearsy Spin now. Click that subscribe button and be sure to also click that bell next to the subscribe button so you'll be notified when we post new videos.
Next, we have the Hillary Clinton investigation that was quietly being done at the FBI regarding plutonium sales to Russia, and that's on top of the email situation. And then further to that, an investigation into voter tampering by the Russians to afford either Donald Trump or Mrs. Clinton an edge over the other in the election. Plus, the FBI and the director, respectively, was under investigation by the CIA and the NSA, and supposedly the FBI, at the same time, was investigating the CIA as well. While all this was going on, the Senate and the Congress were in the middle of their own investigations. On top of this investigating, the director of the FBI still had to direct the actions of the FBI, along with all those who worked there. Okay, now let's review from a bit earlier. Remember when I talked about absolute personality proxies that will emerge, exact personas that are carefully but subconsciously manifested in such a way to fulfill the immediate need of what has to be said or done at the moment? Okay. No one, and I truly mean no one, could stand up to the amount of negative stimuli being generated within all those investigations, not to mention the personalities from the Middle East to the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation, as well as Donald Trump and the Trump presidency post-election. Now, add in the Obama administration and its peculiar and unsubstantiated rules of engagement for the FBI, as well as possible FISA court misrepresentations. So, to sum up my opinion as to why Mr. Comey was fired, and done so in such a way that it sent shockwaves across the world, well, it's my belief, along with others, I'm 5 for 5, Mary Ellen, along with others, that James Comey became subservient to his stressors. That is to say, he, without knowing, developed a multifaceted default personality index designed to provide, on a moment's need, a strong and interceding persona that would be liking to what the situation called for. Now, these thoughts are further evidenced by both reports of questionable conduct, actions, or inactions by the director as time went forward. The proxied personas, while originally strong, became many in number and grew weaker as time went forward. Another way to look at Mr. Comey's actions would be to acknowledge that in all the scenarios provided above, Mr. Comey would have need to select a mask, if you will, for the occasion at hand. Thus, the now impersonality index that we described above. But before we judge James Comey with regard to these different personas, understand that we all wear masks, metaphorically speaking, of course. I would humbly submit that you are not the same person you are right now when you interact with the garbage man, the banker, the lawyer, the nurse at cardiac rehab, the woman or the man next door, your boss, your subordinates, and the list goes on and on and on. So, if in fact I'm correct, and I'm 5 for 5, in my assumption, Mr. Comey, then I would expect that he could no longer stand up to the pressures asserted against him, and the mask began to slip. Result? Devastation with an undoubted acute case of depression and dysphoria. But I believe Mr. Comey lasted longer than anyone I know. His different personas became the bastions of his core self. And at his core, James Comey was a steeled individual. He was unnerving and devoted. Believe it or not, President Trump has done James Comey a huge favor because folks like James Comey don't ever give up. I believe a total breakdown or possibly a heart attack was in Mr. Comey's future. Now, people like Mr. Comey and some Marines I know can best be summed up with this: Morior invictusum, which that is Latin for I died unconquered.
This is Brendan. He never expected to have a foundation created in his name. But then his mother never expected her precious newborn to be diagnosed with a birth defect virus called cytomegalovirus, or CMV. CMV is crippling. Brendan went from what doctors thought was a healthy newborn to one with deafness and brain damage caused by CMV. Brendan's mother learned about CMV to give him the best life possible. Now she wants to help other families avoid this traumatic illness. CMV can be prevented. CMV attacks 1 in 150 babies born in the U.S. 1 in 5 of those babies will suffer lifelong disability. CMV disables more children than Down syndrome and fetal alcohol syndrome. Get the facts. Learn how to protect your unborn child. Visit cmvfoundation.org.
Don't miss even one show. Subscribe to the Spearsy Spin now.
Speaking of people who have faced unbelievable stress and continued on, here's a list of names you might identify with, but never knew this about them. For instance, Abraham Lincoln. It's believed that he suffered from acute depression. It was even known to take mercury pills at the time. Next, Ludwig van Beethoven. From reports available from his day, many mental health professionals believe he was bipolar. Michelangelo. Well, it's believed that he was affected by autism. Charles Dickens. Although he is well written, he's considered by many today to have suffered from depression. Charles Darwin suffered from agoraphobia, which is a fear of being helpless. You're always wanting to escape. You're easily embarrassed, you're panicked, usually a lot of anxiety, and you typically don't like to be in public places. And in the absolute worst case scenario, acute agoraphobia, typically you stay completely away from people. Howard Hughes would be on that list. Okay, Winston Churchill, they thought he had a bipolar disorder. Could be, I don't know. I've never looked at Winston Churchill that way, but perhaps. And finally, Leo Tolstoy, say he suffered from depression. And maybe so. Well, finally, we talk about the Russian situation. And we're going to be back with more of the Russian situation on Friday. But let me tell you about the Russians, folks. We've been dancing with the Russians for years and years. And this dance will continue for years and years to come. So you got to get used to it, but never let your guard down. Anyway, that's our show for Wednesday and Thursday this week. And we'd like to know what you think. You know what we think. We'd like to know what you think. So if you would, go to our blog, and it is thespearsysspin.blogspot.com, and select one of the shows or the show, and let us know what you think. Now, be professional, because you never know what you put there might show up in one of our future shows. Also, always remember, there's only one world. We all have to live in it. So try to make the world better every day. Thanks, everybody. We will see you all back here on Friday.
Thanks for listening to today's show.